Have you ever stopped to think about the true impact of fornication and adultery in your life? Many believe these behaviors are merely personal matters or individual choices, but there is a profound truth often ignored behind these actions. What is rarely discussed is how these practices affect not only the individual, but also relationships, trust, and inner peace for everyone involved. What you might think is just a physical act or a moment of pleasure can have consequences far beyond what you imagine. Stay with us until the end and discover the truth that few dare to face. What seem to be harmless pleasures hide devastating traps that can compromise your life, your family, and your relationship with God. In this video, we will uncover the truth behind these temptations, show how to escape these dangers, and explore how they can impact your self-knowledge, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. Fornication and adultery, in many contexts, are not just moral or religious issues. They can have a profound impact on self-knowledge and the process of emotional healing. To understand how these practices can affect self-awareness, it is important to analyze the emotional, psychological, and spiritual dynamics involved in infidelity and the pursuit of superficial or extramarital connections. Before we begin, it is important to contextualize the concept of fornication, especially in today's world. Traditionally, fornication was understood as sexual relations outside of marriage, considered a sin in many religious traditions. However, in the modern world, interpretations of fornication have shifted. Many people view sexuality more openly, and the practice of relationships outside of marriage is no longer uniformly condemned, varying according to personal, cultural, and social beliefs. Let's explore this shift in perspective to understand how it impacts the understanding and experience of sexuality today. When someone engages in fornication or adultery, the motivation is often not simply sexual desire, but an attempt to seek external validation or fulfill an emotional need. Instead of pursuing self-awareness and inner fulfillment, the person may be trying to fill an emotional void through temporary experiences or extramarital relationships. This can stem from low self-esteem, fear of loneliness, or a desire to find something missing in their life, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. This behavior diverts the individual from a genuine path of self-discovery because true self-awareness requires introspection and acceptance of one's needs and vulnerabilities. Seeking external validation can mask what truly needs to be healed or understood within, hindering the self-discovery process. Fornication and adultery often generate feelings of guilt, shame, and regret. These feelings can create intense internal conflict, making it difficult for a person to fully understand themselves. The individual may begin to doubt their own integrity and values, leading to a disconnection from themselves. This conflict can create barriers to emotional healing, as the individual feels unworthy or incapable of embracing their own transformation process due to the weight of guilt. These negative feelings can have a lasting impact on self-esteem, creating a vicious cycle where the individual seeks more distractions or impulsive behaviors instead of engaging with the emotions that need to be processed and healed. Emotional healing in this context requires the individual to face their deepest emotions, including guilt, shame, and regret, in an honest and compassionate way. Self-knowledge is often blocked by the inability to deal with one's own emotions. When a person seeks momentary gratification or escapism through behaviors such as fornication or adultery, they may be trying to avoid confronting unresolved or difficult emotions. It may be a way to escape loneliness, pain, lack of genuine connection, or dissatisfaction with their own relationship. However, these practices do not promote true emotional healing. Instead of allowing emotions to be processed and understood, they only mask the problem, preventing the individual from knowing themselves deeply. When a person dedicates themselves to self-awareness, they are called to confront their shadows, the aspects of themselves they have avoided or do not want to acknowledge. Fornication and adultery can be ways of escaping true internal exploration. Instead, the individual may be tempted to create external narratives, such as the pursuit of new partners or experiences, to fill the emotional void, limiting the opportunity for real and profound self-discovery. Self-awareness and emotional healing are also deeply connected to the quality of our relationships. When these relationships are based on behaviors such as adultery or fornication, there is often a lack of genuine commitment to both the other person and oneself. The lack of awareness in the relationship reflects a disconnection from one's own being. When immersed in behaviors that are not authentic, that do not respect mutual feelings and commitment, there is a distancing from true understanding of oneself and others. True self-awareness can only flourish when we are willing to be present and authentically committed in our relationships. When this presence is missing, the emotional healing process is also impaired because the genuine bond necessary to heal traumas and promote personal growth is weakened. Although fornication and adultery may be seen as external distractions, they often reflect an unmet internal need. They can indicate that there are deep emotional wounds that need healing, such as insecurity, fear of rejection, or lack of self-worth. Self-awareness deepens when it is recognized that these behaviors are not simply wrong or immoral, but are symptoms of something deeper that needs to be addressed with empathy and understanding. Recognizing this can be the first step in the healing process. Facing the internal wounds that lead to such behaviors can help a person learn more about their true emotional needs, establish healthy boundaries, and seek a more authentic connection with themselves and others. By understanding the underlying causes of these actions, the individual can begin a healing process essential for genuine self-awareness. Let's also talk about lust, which in many ways has a direct connection with fornication and adultery. Lust is an intense and uncontrolled desire for pleasure, especially in the sexual context, which exceeds healthy boundaries and becomes an obsession. It is characterized by the incessant pursuit of sensory gratification, often without considering emotional, spiritual, or even physical consequences. When someone constantly seeks pleasure without discernment, lust can dominate their actions, thoughts, and relationships, leading to a cycle of constant dissatisfaction. In the spiritual and religious context, lust is often viewed as a sin, as it diverts a person from the greater purpose of life, which is genuine love and deep connection with others and with God. In various traditions, lust is understood as a form of enslavement to human desires, as it prioritizes the pursuit of pleasure over higher values, such as respect, fidelity, and self-control. Lust harms both the individual practicing it and the relationships around them, creating conflicts and emotional damage. By seeking immediate pleasure instead of building deep connections, it distorts the view of love, treating others as objects of gratification. Initially seemingly harmless, lust can quickly become destructive, like an uncontrollable fire. In Matthew 5:28, Jesus teaches that sin begins with impure thoughts and intentions, which can lead to harmful actions. In a world saturated with sensual stimuli, pursuing lust does not bring freedom but enslavement. The more we try to satisfy it, the more it grows. Paul in Romans 1:24 describes how rejecting divine principles leads to dependence on passions, destroying lives. The consumption of immoral content distorts how we perceive others, creating barriers in relationships. In marriages, lust undermines trust and intimacy, leading to loneliness. Proverbs 6:27-28 warns that playing with lust leads to devastating consequences. Adultery not only destroys families, but also compromises the spiritual health of those who commit it. A classic example is the story of David and Bathsheba, 2 Samuel 11. What began with a glance turned into a series of sins: adultery, manipulation, and murder. The impact was so profound that the consequences echoed for generations. Adultery doesn't appear out of nowhere. It starts with small compromises, impure thoughts, innocent flirtations, and soon evolves into something greater. When we give room to these temptations, we are walking toward an abyss. Historically, a person's word was considered a direct reflection of their integrity. Fulfilling promises was not only a virtue, but a fundamental pillar for building a community based on mutual trust. In the context of a relationship, this idea is elevated to a more intimate level. The commitment between two people, sealed by words and actions, forms the foundation upon which the relationship flourishes. However, in contemporary society, many treat promises and commitments superficially, devaluing the importance of a given word. In this sense, adultery is not merely a betrayal of one's partner, but a breach of the pact of trust and mutual respect. It demonstrates that the promise made to the other, and to the commitment of the relationship itself, has lost its significance. Ethically, adultery is a violation of the trust and respect that form the foundation of any healthy relationship. When two people enter into a loving commitment, there is an implicit or explicit agreement of exclusivity, fidelity, and mutual respect. Breaking this agreement is not only disrespectful to the partner, but also dishonors oneself and the principles that sustain long-lasting relationships, potentially creating emotional and spiritual issues. Emotionally, adultery is an almost insurmountable wound. It shatters trust, the cornerstone of any sound relationship. For the betrayed person, there are feelings of rejection, deep sadness, and anger. This teaches us the importance of being ethical and empathetic toward others, of considering the feelings that may arise from reckless actions. Meanwhile, the one who commits adultery carries the weight of guilt and the emptiness of their choices. Spiritually, adultery raises a barrier between man and God. Proverbs 6:32 reminds us, "But whoever commits adultery with a woman lacks understanding. He who does so destroys his own soul." This sin is a path that leads to the destruction of body, mind, and soul. May this video serve as a warning, not for condemnation, but for liberation. True freedom comes when we choose to live according to God's principles, building solid and healthy relationships based on respect and mutual commitment. If this message has touched your heart, share it with those you love. Together, we can change the direction of our lives and the lives of those around us. Change begins within us. May we choose purity, true love, and holiness in our choices every day. God is ready to help us, guiding us on the path of transformation. May we walk with Him. Therefore, no matter how far you feel from God today, He is waiting with open arms, ready to transform your life and guide you on a path of peace, purpose, and redemption. If this message has touched your heart, like our video, let us spread the light of God's truth and walk together in His direction. May the Lord bless you abundantly.